How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Hbar update. It has been a while. I haven't been able to get as many videos as possible. I did have a little holiday over the past week, but what has happened since the last video? Unfortunately, it did not get that move I was saying. Hbar needed to have a push up into 21 to 22 cent, but my belief was that from there it would get rejected simply because it just formed some bearish crosses. But it didn't even manage to break through the 200 or the 20 EMA. That's very negative. That means we're following that. So any move up from here from 16 cent should just be back into 18 cent or as high as 19 cent and just get rejected. This is the unfortunate reality. Let me explain. So over the past few months, as soon as this candle was formed, I switched bearish on every single coin. I sold all my assets apart from Bitcoin. In fact, I sold all my alts and put them into Bitcoin. And I've actually been only buying Bitcoin since December in around over here. Now, what happened with that candle to give me this signal to sell my altcoins was the massive wick created across the market. Hbar had one of the larger ones. Naturally, guys, when you see wicks this big, they tend to get filled. It is just what it is. 9 times out of 10. Nothing here is a guarantee. But if you spend years in this, staring at the charts, you will see 9 times out of 10 the wicks get filled. So already, for me, at that moment, I was bearish because I understood for price to have dropped down to 18 cent from 40 is creating many resistances that it now must reclaim. And you can see at that time I was given 33 to 36 cent. So I know that unless this is recovered, this is just going to keep trending lower and lower and lower. And now this is actually the final resistance level. There are many before that point, like the 618 and 65 at 30 cent. You also got the 0.5 here at 26 cent. And you can see the moving averages all within that area. So let's just create a box between that zone. And you can see that is pretty much where it got rejected. And it eventually filled in that wick. That's great that it filled in the wick and reacted to the 200 EMA. This is where I warned everyone of a market bounce on Hbar. This is where Hbar got the bounce back up into 24, 26, 27 cent. But I was saying on a daily basis, all the way through these candles, that 25 to 27 cent is my resistance where I expect to get rejected. And it's not good enough pumping into there. It needs to recover this level and recover the next. So a recovery of 25 to 27 is a great first step. However, it would just signal for a further pump up into the next resistance, not expecting it to break because it is resistance. Only when we see it broken and flipped into support are we bullish. So all the way up here, although I called for the move up into 27 cent, I was saying that it was going to reject from there. Came back down, found some support, and the following days it had another move back up. I was telling everyone in those videos it will get rejected here. This is simply just previous support flipping into resistance. It was lost. The negative signal was that green candle filling in the wick. It just further confirms that. Although it's not losing the wick as support, that's what gives the opportunity to bounce. The bounce came and did not recover the level it needed to. That means this market is bearish. That is why we've come back down into support and why it needed to bounce from there to form a double bottom and recover 27 cent and also recover 36 cent. The likelihood of that all happening is so little. The probabilities become less and less and less the more times it fails when there are less hurdles. So for example, on this first candle, although the big wick was enough of a signal for me to say it's going to fill it in, you could argue it was better positioned over here than it was down in this zone because there are less hurdles up ahead. Now that we're down over here, there are more resistances to tackle. Now that we lost this key level of support, there are more resistance to tackle. And recovering this and recovering this and recovering this is not good enough. It needs to, in full swoop, recover 36 cent, flip it into support, and of course, bounce from there. That needs to be turned into the bottom. And the likelihood of that is very low. So that's why, for me personally, I just wouldn't be touching not just Hbar, but altcoins in general. That is just me, guys. Don't have to agree or disagree. This is just my belief. This is the system that I've created using Fibonacci. And is actually what has saved me a lot of money in this period, because when I saw those bearish signals, I was not complacent. I took action, sold the alts into Bitcoin. Bitcoin having gone down very little percentage wise from 100k, it's only at 82. So the percentage drop isn't so great. You can see there are some days where it's doing 12%. That's almost beating what Bitcoin's down all these months. And that's just in one candle. Here, look, 15% minus candle. If you go from wick to wick, 23%, you know, Bitcoin's down that in all these months from 100K. Whereas HBAR, you can see in one day, it can do almost that. So that signal to switch over was correct. You can also check out HBAR versus BTC. We can see that Bitcoin has been dominating. I just want to make you aware that any market-wide bounce, I don't believe it will sustain to flip the trend. I don't have those signals as of yet that this is going to shift on a macro term, especially when we're losing macro support here and then creating a base over a few months and then losing that also. So there's a lot more work to do. We do have a gap on the S&P 500. Oh gosh, the stock market opened with another gap. Damn. So literally, guys, in the last 2 days, the stock market is down almost 8%. That is crazy. And for Bitcoin to still be at 82, 83K, that's showing you the strength. That's absolutely insane to me. I was really believing that we're going to go and fill in the wick and at least get a market-wide bounce where we might see Bitcoin dominance coming back down and a little altcoin pump. But I thought that maybe that pump would just be back into the 20 or the 200 or as high as 21 cent, the 100 EMA, for it to then, of course, reject and continue lower. So for Bitcoin dominance, that would be dumping and then continuing the pump to fill that in. Wow, it's not even doing that. The S&P is really that weak. That is crazy, guys. If you look at my past TA, you can see in the past when it maintained this moving average recovery and continuation. So I was expecting that over here. And it was similar on the Bitcoin chart as well, the 200 EMA. It did not do what it needed to, guys. So that's the path it needed to go on. You know, turning that 886 eventually into support, flipping the golden ratio area into support. Didn't even give a bounce that pumped into the moving average. Didn't even do that. So weak, the stock market. And then, yeah, with that gap created yesterday, I was thinking, yeah, it's going to fill it in, maybe get that altcoin bounce into those key levels of resistances. But no, wow, this is absolutely terrible. You don't understand. Wow. But yeah, a bounce will have to happen at some point for sure to fill in these gaps. It's just, please understand, the further we go down, remember, the more hurdles it creates. In the last, so if we go back to Wednesday, this was the support. Losing that yesterday on Thursday, well, now that is resistance. Losing this today on Friday, well, now this is resistance. So there are just so many more new added resistances, so many more new hurdles. S&P 500, the more it goes down, you can see the 886 very, very far away. I need a sustained move that goes all the way up there, flips down support, and continues higher. Why does it need to be so extreme? Because if we look into the past, you will see previous examples where the 886 was failed to reclaim and just continue to put in new lower lows, lower lows. Eventually, the 886 will break. Bitcoin is deflationary over the long term, so at some point it will get out of a mess that is created, that it's been put into. It's the whole market. It's not just crypto. So you can see it looked like a bottom, could have called for a bottom. You know, the 20th of March, look at where it topped out. 8th of April, almost a month passes of going up, and then you go to new lows because that 886 isn't broken. Let's reset, and with this new lower low, place our fibs again. You can see the 886, a month passed. Look, May the 1st till 6th of June, a month and a week pass of going up daily just to get scammed, trapped. It went to new lower lows because that 886 was not broken. Same thing once again, the 886 was not broken. One day though, 8 months later, or however many months later, a year passes, and then the 886 is broken. So every time we entered it, we can't have this faith. Okay, this chart proves that. Can't have this faith that it's just going to recover easily. So that's what has allowed me to get out early, to identify these things, to not be complacent, to take action. And hopefully, I was doing that ever since back in February. And hopefully I was able to help some of you. Now, if you saw me saying those things in those videos back then, but didn't take action, consider that education. You need to learn it to actually understand it. Me just saying it 100 million times, you're not going to get it until it's, one-to-one explained. Or I've got an ebook where it's 30 to 40 pages explaining the strategy in detail. But unfortunately, guys, this market is bearish. Where it was meant to bounce and start somewhat of a recovery, even if it was just short-term and not going to sustain, it didn't even do so. That was what was meant to happen over the past couple of weeks. Did not get a move up, As you can see, I was just targeting the moving averages at the time, the 0.5, so expecting that to be the area where it would have put in a lower high. You can see with this Fibonacci I was using at the time, it's telling me 27 cent needs to be reclaimed, the 886 fib, just like those Bitcoin charts with the 886 fib. With any dump, we can place those fibs. We know the level needs to break. We'd see characteristic changes. We'd see a new high above this, a new local high. It still could be lower than that. But on the break of the 886, we are going to break that high. We are going to put in a new local high. Could still be lower than the last, could get up into the 886 here and then go into new lows still. I've just shown you on the Bitcoin charts that could still be the reality. And that's why when we enter dip, we have to take action and not be complacent immediately. If you want me to help you with that, consider the Discord community, because I'm marking out every single move and my expectations from it, what I will do to those moves expected. So yeah, consider that, consider the education. Please continue liking, subscribing, commenting. It really bumps up the algorithm. We're almost at 10k subscribers. I don't know when I'm going to get these videos out, so turn on the notification bell for sure. But that is it from me today. Any move back up is just going to be into the 20 or the 200 to continue lower. Even if this is actually recovered, we're going to get rejected there to attempt to continue lower, but you could argue there's a potential bounce. Even if we get up into there, it's not breaking the 886s. I need those levels broken. So until then, I'm going to remain with this bias. And that is what led me to telling you this move up was false. Thank you so much for tuning in, giving me your time. Don't forget on your way out to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you want to get educated, use the links in the description. I also recommend following me on Twitter as well.